Good morning, everybody. Welcome to round one of the 2023-2024 Investec Champions Cup. The Vodacom Bulls side that will take on Saracens is as follows. At 1, Gerard Steenekamp. At 2, Akka van der Merwe. 3, Wilco Low. At 4, Janko Tshwane. At 5, Renard Ludwig. At 6, Marco van Staden. 7, Elrich Low, who will captain the side. 8, Cameron Hanekom. 9, Ambrose Papier. 10, Johan Goosen. 11, Kenan Moody. 12, David Krill. 13, Stedman Gans. 14, Ketli Arendse. And Willie Leroux at full back. The Impact squad, Simpiwe Matanzima at 16, Jan-Hendrik Wessel 17, Morney Smith at 18, Dion Slabert at 19, and Marcel Coetzee at 20, returning Zach Berger at 21, 22 is Jaco van der Walt, and 23, Sergio Peterson.
Hi, Jake, hope you're well.
Good, yeah, thanks, Sasha.
Marcel Coetzee back, even though it's on the bench, but particularly second half impact.
Yeah, look, I'm happy to have him back, but also I'm more happy is that we got the same pack of forwards running out. It's also nice for us continuity, and it also sends the right message out. They played really well. It would be unfair just because Marcel's back and available that we make changes to the team after that performance. So it's nice to have him, but there's obviously a lot of positivity in the camp based on the fact that that team is as it was last weekend.
Yeah, the forwards have been going great guns, but we know Saracens, they also have very experienced pack. Got two young locks here against someone like Itoje. How do you see that going?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's another test for them, and I say that without saying any disrespect to Itoje. They played against Eben Etzebeth last week, and everyone spoke about the big challenge they had ahead of them, and I think they played really well against Eben as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing it's another challenge, another international player, in other words, another good international player. And it'll be nice to see how the development of our squad and the growth of our forward pack keeps going, during the year.
And just one more for now, Jake. Saracens, they play a very methodical game, percentages and paddles, kicking a lot and all of that. But, the Bulls, particularly at Loftus, we know how you want to play a high-tempo attacking style. Do you stick with that, or do you get drawn into that sort of test style, kind of tighter game? What suits your team?
Yeah, Ashfaq, I think that's always going to be a wonderful debate in rugby. That's what makes rugby so unique, is you can play in different ways. And so Saracens have shown over the last couple of years they've had an incredible success rate playing the style they play. But I don't think the Bulls need to get sucked into anything. I think we've got to try and focus on what we do well, especially at home, because we have all the contributing factors like altitude, like the heat, and obviously the momentum we've had in the way we've been playing. So that is something that we mustn't move away from. But it's going to be an interesting test match. They have obviously got a good kicking game, but I'm very confident with Willie, Kanan and Kirtley that have played together at international level that they would have played against international sides that play similar to that, and they would have done that quite well anyway. So I'm looking forward to seeing whether or not the makeup of our group can make sure we play the way we want to play.
Thanks, Ashfaq. Jan?
Thank you very much, Linga. Thank you, Jake. You probably answered most of what I was going to ask in any event in terms of style and that. How much do you lean? I know in the back you've got Willie, so a lot has been said about Willie, and we all read a lot about it. How much do you lean on Marco to keep that calmness up front with these young players, that they don't get, I wouldn't say overawed, but that they don't get too excitable?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think, Jan, the answer to that is I would like to believe that after the years of experience we've had now, and I'm not talking about the seasoned campaigners, but, a guy like Janku and a guy like, even Elrich Low, who captained last week, and I thought he did a really good job last week as a captain. I can see the growth in them over the last couple of seasons, and I've got no doubt that lessons they would have learned playing away in Lyon last year, or playing away in Exeter last year, or playing Exeter last year as well, would have been lessons that they can use in these big games. I mean, I think everyone appreciates Saracens have got an incredible record at Champions Cup. It's almost like the Barcelona of rugby. and it's going to be a wonderful test match. And you know, it's not just Marco. I think the learnings we've all made as a group in the last couple of seasons are going to have to be, you know, watertight this week as well, because we're going to get asked different questions. We're going to get, you know, we're going to get tested in different areas than we probably have been tested before because of the way that Saracens play. It's well known that their style is unique, and they do it very well. So, I don't think it's just an issue of Marco. I think it's everyone in the group. You know, it's you look at the amount of progress David Creel's made in the last couple of seasons. You look at the amount of progress even a guy like Ambrose Papier's made, and he gets a chance to play against Ivan van Zyl. I would think that Ivan would play, and they train probably hours and hours and hours competing against each other. So I'm sure that all those lessons are going to be the ones that we're going to need individually and collectively this weekend.
Another one, last one, follow-up from me is, in terms of the start of the game, how important is that you guys, like last week, that you guys have a good start?
Well, I think it's always good to start well. But, I mean, the one thing we do know is the longer you play at altitude, I mean, the more fatigued you get, especially if you're a touring side. So it'd be wonderful to start well and continue playing well, but you know, I don't necessarily reckon because you start badly, therefore, you know, all is lost. I think there's a lot of different contributing factors that can play a role in these championship games. I've got no doubt that Saracens would also want to start well because of the experience they have, and because of the, you know, as I said, the personnel they have as well. I'm sure they would know they need to start well as well. So. Yeah, without sounding like it's, I don't think it's only tomorrow that you need to start well. I think any coach wants to start well, you know, get some confidence, make sure everyone's touched the ball, get some points early, put some pressure on the opposition. I don't think it's going to be any different tomorrow.
Thanks, Jan. Carl?
Thank you for the opportunity. We spoke last week about the chess game and everything, and it seems like Saracens doesn't play a chess game. I mean, they brought their strongest team out to South Africa, and then they go back and play Connacht. Is that the kind of setup that you strive to achieving at the Bulls, so that you can play 2 weeks the same, 2 weeks, two very strong squads?
Yeah, Carl. I mean, I can't answer for them, but it's a great honour for us that they bring their best team to come and play against us. You know, it sends a great message to us as a group that they take us that seriously, that they would bring all the internationals that they have available to come and play at Loftus. And knowing them, that would also be because it's a learning experience for them. First time in South Africa playing against the Bulls, first time staying in Pretoria. You know, there's a lot has been said about the Saracens way, and the Saracens way is creating memorable experiences for their group as they develop as a team. You know, whether they're taking guys to Ibiza for the weekend, or whether they're taking guys on a skiing holiday, or whether it always seems to be something that they try and pride themselves on in creating memories for the team. So. Firstly, a wonderful honour, a wonderful, you know, as I said, it's wonderful that they see us as a team where they bring their best. I'd like to get to that stage where, you know, we can play our strongest internationals every week. We're not at that stage yet, and we're still growing as a group in this competition. I mean, even the audience that come and even the people that have been following it won't appreciate just how this competition works. And I've been lucky enough to coach it. For Montpellier, won the Challenge Cup, but then also played in the Champions Cup, and I know how big it is. I mean, I've been into the change rooms post-finals to watch teams celebrate. I've seen what sort of squads you have to put on the field in order to get victories in this competition. So, you know, the fact that they brought their best guns is, as I said, it's wonderful for us. It gives us a wonderful test as to where we are as a group, especially only that we're in our second year in this competition. So it's going to be interesting measurement for us as a group to see how much progress we've made since we've started our campaign together a couple of years ago.
Cool.
And I'm sure you are going to be very intent on spoiling their memories, not sending them back with good memories too.
Yeah, well, memories aren't always necessarily Wonderful. I mean, memories can be interpreted different ways. So, yeah, I mean, it's not a case of spoiling anybody. It's or spoiling their party. I mean, we got to play as well as we can, Carl. And I repeat, it's going to be a wonderful. I think it's going to be a wonderful measurement for us as a group. You know, our average age of our team is still not where I want it to be. Considering that I've had the same group, you know, some of those youngsters, guys like Cameron Hannekom and Reinhard Ludwig and Jan-Hendrik Wessels and Kanan Moody and Ulrich Lowe and Mornay Smith. I mean, they've basically been with me since they were like 19 years old. So it's wonderful that they get to experience, firstly, a wonderful opportunity of playing in the Champions Cup, and secondly, against a wonderful team and a really professional team like the Saracens.
Cool. Thank you guys online.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
How's it, Jake? Pretty good. Jake, this weekend, a good result. How important is it to sort of
The recording has
mention
stopped.
that you wanted to be competitive this is, for it to sort of like be a statement of intent? How important is it?
Well, look, I don't know if I'm going to quickly give you a summary of how it works. So there are 6 teams in the pool. You get the top 4 go through into the top 16. The 5th team goes into the Challenge Cup, and the 6th team basically falls out. So I will know after this weekend where we are. Not because of our result, because I'd like to see how the other games go. And it'll give me a great measurement as to where we are as a club. Now, it doesn't get any, and people, often coaches say this, doesn't get any tougher than this weekend, but I'm telling you, it doesn't get any tougher than this. The big guns of Saracens have arrived. They've won this championship. I was in the change room when they won it. It happened to be the same year that we won the Challenge Cup, and by coincidence, I was lucky enough to go with Mr. Rupert into their change room when they won in Lyon, and I saw what it meant to a club, and I saw how hard they had to work, and the feedback I got as to how much input they put into winning that tournament. So when I say I say it's not lightly. It doesn't get any bigger to play against Saracens at home in the opening round of a tournament at 7:30 on a Saturday evening. And what I'm so excited about is I want to see where we are, and I'll have a good feeling after the game and after the weekend's games as to where we are as a club. And that'll help me in recruiting in the next couple of years. It'll help me in understanding where we are as a rugby club. But I'm really looking forward to being able to measure ourselves against a team like Saracens because of the uniqueness of the way they play, because of the success they've had. I mean, think about it. I mean, I'm, again, not giving anyone a lesson. They got relegated, and a year later they won the championship. I mean, it just shows you how successful and how organised they are. I mean, there's not many clubs that have gone down a year and come back and ended up winning a premiership. So I have a lot of respect for what they do at a club, and as I said, a lot of people have spoken about it, how they do things, the way they do things, the way they treat people, the way they look at their club, the way they, as I said, it's a lot bigger than just 80 minutes of rugby for us this weekend.
I mean, the changing room right now, Jake, do your guys sort of rely on the history of the Bulls going into this game?
I hope so. I hope so, because that's part of what rugby is all about. I read something, Saracens started in about 1826 or something, and we started in 1940. The Bulls, the rugby union, Northern Transvaal started. So, we're big on history as well, and we never played them in South Africa. We've never been able to play an opening game against a championship side like that. So there's a lot of history and a lot of memories to be made as well. So I'm hoping my players understand that, and not because I haven't told them, because that's what it's all about, is being able to play against the best players in the world. It's the biggest club tournament in the world, Football players leave football clubs because their club isn't going to play in the Champions League. That's where, and football's been a lot more professional for a long period of time than rugby union. So if we can get to a point where these young boys appreciate playing Champions Cup rugby and how big it is, and the quicker they do it, the happier I'm going to be.
Jake, in terms of football in context, which club would you compare the Bulls to?
The Bulls?
Yeah.
Well, I'd have to say Liverpool because I'm a Liverpool supporter, and you're going to put me in a spot. But yeah, it's difficult because we've just started as a championship club. I'm talking about in this tournament. But I'd like to emulate teams that are consistently always in the Champions Cup, and I'd like to emulate teams that are consistently in the playoffs of Champions Cup, and I'd like to long-term emulate the fact that we can win Champions Cup without just talking about it. I'm fully aware our squad is far from where it needs to be. Budgets are different. I looked at just by chance. I was doing a thing now in Leon next week. What happens in rugby, we plan a week ahead, so we look at Leon, and 42% of the Leon team played for New Zealand, and 27% played for Samoa, and 16% played for, when you look at that, you're not just playing Leon, you're playing against an international team, and we only got South Africans playing here. So it is a different dynamic, but I'd like to get to a point where we've got 25, 30 internationals like Leinster that can play any weekend and play against any international team and be good enough. That's where I'm striving for.
Brandon.
Jake, just on that, I was going to ask the question, but now talking about Leon, so you've planned the week ahead, so you've got your squad, I take it already,
Yes.
it's going to go next week.
Yes.
So it's not going to be influenced by what happens this week?
No.
Okay. And just in terms, well, we can talk about that after the game, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Leon and such.
It'll only influence, obviously, I get an injury or two.
Yeah.
Because obviously I have to, but I already told the players who's going next week, and I already told the players they can start doing some prep, and they start needing to do some homework on the players they're going to be playing against, and hopefully watch Leon play this weekend, tape it, put it on PVR and make sure they watch it. So, it won't change, because I think in order to get depth in your squad, everyone needs to have a fair crack at where we want to be in this competition.
And then just on Owen Farrell's obviously extremely influential guy, coming back, a lot of focus on him tomorrow. As an opposition coach, you've been through it with a guy like Spoo, that we had to bring him back into the fold, and the way the players react around a player like that. As an opposition coach, how do you prepare for him? I know it's a team game, one guy doesn't do everything, but he is probably the most influential player.
Yeah, look, I think, Brent, to be honest, I think one guy does sometimes do everything, Jonah Loma was, let me tell you, I wish I could have coached him, because he could have won you a game on his own. And Farrell's no different. Look at last week, they lost to Northampton at home. And not because they're a bad side, but it just shows you the influence he has. So, he is a very influential player. And he's going to have to be looked after. The bottom line is he's played at big levels. I just see what it means to, or what kind of feedback you get from a guy like Vali Leroux, who's won 2 World Cups. That is, you can't buy that. What he says, how he says it. I watch him run 50 meters to come and tell the forwards how to scrum. It's incredible. He's never been in a scrum in his life, but he's running from 50 meters to tell the props where they must push, and it just shows you what kind of influence you can have. So I've got no doubt Owen Farrell is a phenomenal rugby player. I've read lots and lots about, I don't know why he gets all this flack that he does. Because let me tell you, when you play against him, realise how good he is. So it's going to be no different. But saying that, they're a good team. People don't even talk about the other internationals they got running around there. Most of their players have played international rugby, and the ones who haven't definitely will. So that's the kind of caliber club they have.
Just lastly from me, just in terms of, on that same sort of subject, has your guys' approach in terms of the mental health of players changed in the last while after Spoo's incident? Now with everything else we're seeing, it's becoming obviously very talked about.
Okay, well, let me say this to you. I think that rugby union is still very far behind professional sport in other codes. And we haven't probably scraped the top of the surface in terms of players that struggle mentally, or, gambling issues or alcoholic issues. All these other sport codes have gone through that. We have a full-time psychologist, as you know, Brennan, and we've always had one here, even when I was at the box. So Henning, and he's on call 24/7 for any player. And I think it is, from our point of view, I can't talk about other clubs, but it's very important. Part of being a coach and part of being a mentor is helping players understand that this is not the real life. Standing in the front of a queue, getting into a bus, getting dropped off at your hotel, having a buffet of food waiting for you, getting your bag delivered, flying on a chartered aeroplane between countries for rugby games is not really how the world operates. And part of that is you've got to, as a mentor and a coach, you've got to teach them that. So, it is something that I think, and I'm talking only for the Bulls, we talk about it a lot, and we appreciate the fact that everyone's human, kids go through divorces, kids go through difficult times with parents, and those things all have to be addressed. You can't just, because a rugby player, think that he's abnormal and he doesn't go through those sort of difficulties. So, yeah, I mean, it is a work in progress, and I can't talk for other teams, but I can tell you that we are very, very aware of it, and we do work really hard on opening doors and communication channels for anyone who needs to come and chat to us.
Right.
Jake, on Owen, but it's actually a rugby-related question. I know two years later, deals are sort of like sometimes a bit cliche and stuff, but just given the attention and the pedigree of Owen Farrell, but there's this duel between him and Johan Goosen might actually be like really, really interesting as well, because both in rugby terms are also brilliant players, but have also throughout their careers polarized. Are you looking for polarizing, in terms of opinion of it's fair or not, but are you looking forward to that sort of like battle?
Okay, let me say it again without giving everyone a rugby lecture, but any 10 that wears a jersey with number 10 polarizes people. It doesn't matter which country you play for. I mean, I've read it every time you give the jersey, I should have given it to someone else. And so, I mean, that is I suppose that's the makeup of the position, and that's the makeup of the territory that you operate in. I mean, I think to be fair, I think Johan would probably be really relishing the fact that he can play against Owen. I mean, he wants to play Test rugby again, and he would have loved to have gone to the World Cup, like all youngsters here. And now he gets a crack at Champions League to play against Owen Farrell. And I think it's going to be, I'm sure that's a great measurement for him too. And I talk a lot about measurement this week, about where we are as a club. Individually, it'll be a great measurement. Imagine Reinhard Ludwig, young lock, jumping against Itoji, and what a wonderful measurement to see how good you are in rugby. And Johan, I'm sure he'd want to challenge and see how good he is against the guy who's played 100 times for his country and is captain, his country, and played for the British and Irish Lions, and it's probably going to be one of the great rugby players that have come out of England. So, that's why I said you're right. Sometimes you can't always talk about these duels individually. I think it's a collective measurement on whether or not individually and collectively, and I suppose, club-wise, whether we are where we need to be as a club. I can tell you tomorrow night at the end of the game whether I think we are where we need to be, or whether we are where where I thought we were. And I'll only know that once every player and person involved tomorrow has the measurement. I suppose the progress card on where we are.
Maybe nice. Brian, with the last question.
Coach, earlier on when you were addressing the online guys, you spoke one or twice. You spoke about a test match.
Yes.
Is that you sort of anticipating that the intensity of this game it won't quite be a test match, but it get almost to that level?
No, it will be a test match. That's the irony about rugby, is that one of the things that changes between a schoolboy team, a club team, a provincial team, and an international team is you just have less time. You have less time to decide. You have less time to make a decision. You have less time. Basically that's what a test match is about. Test matches, it's the same skill level with less time to do it in. And that's when players talk about it. I've read a lot this week from coaches and players saying Challenge Cup and European Cup rugby and Champions Cup rugby is like a test match, and it is. It's exactly that. It's not the quality of opposition you're playing against is better. The time it gives you to make a decision is less. And the pressure is so much greater because of that. Because you have so much. I suppose you have so many good players around you, both coming at you and playing with you, that it becomes a spectacle. So, this is as close as it gets to Test match rugby. I mean, I've been lucky enough to have coached the Test match rugby, and I don't have to tell you, but when you hear that song tomorrow as they're coming out of the change room, there's something that makes you realise it's a different league. It's just a different league. Maybe I've just got memories of that song as they play that EPCR song. It almost means be careful. Today you better be ready.
Maybe Brian.
Thanks, Josh. Jake, last season you sort of split your squads between the URC and the ECC. You sort of did the math and you said it wasn't going to be possible for South African sides to go all the way in this particular tournament. This particular season, are you still going with the same approach, or?
I'm just laughing because I'm wondering if you work for the Stormers and trying to find out my squad for next week.
No, trust me, no legs to it.
Okay, because we got the Stormers the following week, so I thought maybe the whole of Cape Town. Ashfaq, thank God I closed that computer.
So no, this season, Jake, is it a similar type of approach, or do you feel as if your recruitment drive has sort of covered you to go full throttle on both competitions?
Well, I'm going to answer that by saying I think I'm probably luckier than last year, and that I don't think we're as lucky as we can be to rest everybody and have a new team. I mean, I say that because I don't think our depth is there yet. But I'm much more comfortable this year that in terms of what we've got into our squad, that I can be more flexible in terms of rotating certain players. So there was a massive difference between the guys who started for us last year and the guys that were the second choices. And no, as I said, no attack on those poor guys that were the second choices. I just feel now that the combination of having the starters and some of the other guys is not as different as it was this time last year. So I'm looking forward to. That's why I said to Brennan, I've already told who's going away next week, and it's a strong side. It's a strong team, and it also gives the players that are going the sense that we're taking it seriously for next week as well. It's not just a case of whoever's left goes on tour next week.
And then just lastly for me, Jack, I know coaches don't usually like to speak on individuals, but just in the case of young Cameron Hanekom, I mean, what does it mean throughout, I mean, besides all the recruitment they always talk about when they talk about the Bulls, but what does it mean to the union to have such a young man come in and have such a positive impact? And realistically, what do you think his ceiling is as a player?
Okay, well, I mean, it's funny. I was watching the game again this morning and again last night, the Bulls game. Just the things he does is like an adult, running and offloading. And so, I mean, the ceiling's very simple. I mean, the ceiling's up to him. I think he can become an international rugby player. There's no doubt in my mind about that. Is it exciting? Of course, it's exciting. I mean, you leave a guy like Marcel Coetzee on the bench and you pick a guy like Cameron Hanekom, says a lot for the way he's playing. And I joked with him this morning when I saw him. I said, listen, Vinny Pola's waiting for you. He's coming tomorrow. So there you go. So we'll see what happens tomorrow, It's nice for him. He gets, 21, you get to play against Vinny Pola. I mean, geez, it doesn't get better than that.